YouTube? We are back with another episode of The Digital Gate. As always, these segments are meant to provide a short and quick recap of everything that's going on in the Digimon world, whether it be anime related, video game related, TCG news, and everything in between. You know, our first few episodes have been very heavily skewed towards the TCG side of things, mainly because there's been a lot of things going on, but as the months move on, we do hope to provide you all with some more, stuff to discuss and stuff to talk about. That being said, before we hop into the video itself, I did want to have a quick shout out to our social media links, which will be in the video description down below. It'll include our Discord, our Twitter, our Instagram, as well as our YouTube and TCG player memberships. We love interacting with you guys, and the Discord itself has been growing a lot of late, which has been really, really cool to see. It's been awesome getting to know some of you guys who are part of our community and talking to you guys about anything really Digimon related. So, if you want to join and have fun with us, please do feel free to check those out. But without further ado, let's hop right into our first bit of TCG news here, which was another in-person regional. Alrighty guys, so the first and main topic of the video here will be the in-person regionals that was held over in Texas this past weekend. Here we have the breakdown of our top 16 players. This is courtesy of Eggman Events. I'll link the website down below in the video description. But huge shout out to Eggman for always compiling these top 16 lists. Super helpful for us as players to see what's been topping, what are some strong and competitive decks in today's meta. And he not only does this for Digimon, but does this for One Piece, Dragon Ball, Battle Spirits as well. So huge shout out to him for being such a monumental figure in the TCG community. So thanks again, Eggman, for doing all of this. The regionals this past weekend, like I said, in Texas was hosted by Play TCG. It was a total of 254 players, won a total of 7 rounds, and was eventually won by Numemon, piloted by Ryan Weeks. Going 7-0 undefeated and taking the whole event. So huge congratulations to you, Ryan. But overall, what I really am taking out of this is that the spread, as you guys can see here, is super diverse, right? We've got, like I said, Numemon took it, but you've got Security Control, you've got Red Hybrid, you got Fenry Lugamon, you had a Belfamon player sneak in, which is a deck that we haven't seen in a really long time. We've got the Newtarium online, Levia, Mirage, Sovereigns. We've got an Armors that snuck into the top 16. So really wide field of players here, right? And I think it's just very encouraging as a player, particularly in this format. That might change come BT-16, who knows? But at the same time, I think right now it's very encouraging because you can pretty much say, look, I'm going to pilot a deck, I'm going to learn it really well, and I'm going to learn how to just pilot it to its optimal form, and you can expect to do pretty well. The fact that the spread is so wide tells you that it's a lot of player expression right now, a lot of pilot expression, which I think is really cool. And it's not dominated by one single deck that is not only just heavily represented, but also is just tier 0 best deck in format. So I think really cool to see. But without further ado here, let's check out Ryan's list, as the first place topper. So Numemon, as we've seen in our match play videos, as well as TJ, who will be doing a deck profile in the near future on it, Numemon really focuses on low to the ground bodies, and I think Ryan's deck here illustrates that pretty nicely. You've got the 4 Ukamons, which I think is just staple for any sort of low to the ground rush decks, and then you kind of have your Numemon and Garamon lines, which I think provide not only aggression but a lot of floating bodies, right? You don't really care if your bodies die because they come right back out and in full force. The Manzemon package with the Manzemon X Antibody and the Waru Manzemon I think are really strong for that aggression. Some tech pieces that we see with Ryan's deck are the 4 Zwart defeats, the Azulong Ace, which I think you typically see in security control decks, right? But I do think it makes sense to run them in a Numemon, which has multiple level 5 yellow cards that are easy targets for this. And the Ace effect is super good too, right? Being able to bounce an opponent's Digimon and then kind of do some board control there is super nice. These Zwart defeats obviously are just, free bodies that come out and be able to swing next turn, which in a deck that already provides low to the ground aggression, being able to have this guy pop out of security is just added benefit to that. I do like the Chimeramon tech, because you do, like I said, you float out a lot of bodies. Being able to just DNA Digivolve and Chimera to get an extra swing also isn't a bad idea. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as Chimera, you do lose some of your inheritable effects because those only proc if you have like Monzemon or Numemon in name. But like I said, at the end game where you have a Chimera that could potentially just go for game, I think it's a really good tech. You know, and the Protoform and Saskia, I think, again, are just staples to that. So I think a pretty standard Numemon deck with some nice added spice. So again, shout out and congrats to Ryan here for taking first. So second place here, we've got Isaiah Security Control. I think a pretty standard security control list, modeled off of what we saw Peter, who took Worlds and second place in the North America Championships. You know, the Digimon Emperor, I think, is a really nice tech, particularly in today's meta, being able to penalize people for moving from breeding is always annoying and frustrating to deal with. I do like the Revelation of Light. I've been trying to use it more in my Yellow Vaccine build to some pretty good effect. Teching it in as a one-of is, I think, a decent idea to get just an extra body out on board. But granted that you are running a lot of heavier top ends, I do see why like maybe 1 or 2 at best is, you know, it makes sense. You got your typical Chaos Degrade, Flame Hell Scythe package, your Lonky packages. So I think overall, just a pretty standard security control list. So congrats. Next, we've got 4th place with Belfamon. Personally, I don't love this matchup as a Mirage player because they're shaving down their hand size so effectively and negating attacks. So almost like a double whammy on my end. And I think this is a pretty standard one at that. You know, adding on the Ukomon package as well is added aggression for, again, a deck that goes very, very fast and very aggressive. But I think otherwise, your standard Belfamon package is there. Your Gizmon line helps you with setting up trash and your draw power. The Ogremon is something that we definitely saw folks sprinkle in with previous Belfy builds. And then the Raremon, again, for that extra cycle is not a bad tech. The rest of it, though, is a pretty standard Belfy list. You know, the Tamers and the Analog Youth are just extreme gas for this deck and adds benefit to control as well with the Akihiro Tamer. So I think a pretty standard list. It's nice to see Belfy come back. As much as I hate the matchup personally, I think it's a deck that's still very, very strong. And I think people just migrated from Belfy to Levia, which is why we see Belfy drop off. But it's, you know, I think this is a huge shout out to just how strong the deck is in general. So maybe we might see a resurgence. Who knows? Next, we've got Steve's 5th place Mega Gargomon list. Pretty similar to what Jarrell has been cooking with. For those of you who are looking to see what Jarrell's been cooking and playing with, he is going to be doing a deck profile for us. We'll have that video out for you. Should be by tomorrow, by the time this video uploads, so look out for that. But I do like his sort of unique text here, such as Heaven's Judgment. I think Heaven's right now is just... DP reduction is probably one of the strongest mechanisms of removal in today's game. And having Heavens as a security threat, or just a threat they can use from hand, I think is really, really good. Especially with ace cards running around, being able to pop either a top-end ace or a stack with an ace in it gains you memory and makes this play a lot more efficient. You know, many times you're playing Heavens and playing it only for a cost of like 4, 3, sometimes even. So it's a really, really good card here, I think. Fire Rocket to give your Mega Gargo an extra check and added DP with its ability to restand, and Alliance can get real, real nasty and real fast. I do like the Quartzmon and the Omnimon Merciful Mode sort of combination. Quartz mainly because you're wideboarding so much, right, with your Tamers and your double Typhoons, right? You know, Quartz does gain added value there, and the Merciful Mode is a really good counter to Levia, which is one of the more prominent decks this format. So pretty good bunnies list. I think a pretty standard one of that too. And it's nice to see Terrier top an event finally. So really, really good job by Steve, and shout out to him. 6th place, we do have Levia. I don't really have too much to say about Alex's list. It's a pretty standard one, you know, at that. You've got your Rush Guillemons, which a lot of people are utilizing now, mainly for like that end of game. Bring them out, swing, get added chip damage in, or just swing for game. Running your 4 Levias and 3x antibodies, I think is a pretty standard ratio. your Biting Crushes and 7th Lightning, again, huge synergy with Leviathan. Also just shuts down a lot of opponents and makes them play around it, which is really annoying. They are opting more so, it seems like, for the Waru Seedramon and the X Antibody package. No Protoform, which is a little bit of a change from what I'm running personally, but clearly it worked for Alex, and Leviathan's just a really strong deck in general, so shout out to him. Next, we've got Angel 7th place, Red Hybrid. Again, this is a pretty standard Red Hybrid list. Ukamon just makes this deck super, super fast and extremely scary. We've seen Matt Vang top twice now. Once on the online regional with Core TCG, and this current regionals here, I believe he got 10th with Red Hybrid this time around. So Red Hybrid is going to be strong, and it's going to continue staying strong this format, next format, and probably for formats to come. As we get more hybrid support, who knows, how well this deck is going to do. We know we have a new Ancient Greymon. We know we have some new Red Hybrid pieces coming into play. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see where, decks like this evolve and go from. We're already seeing it top consistently for multiple sets now. It's going to be very, very scary moving forward. So shout out to Angel here. Next, we've got the boy and Mirage. It's really nice to see Mirage being played a little bit more now. We've seen it top a couple Latin America events. We've seen it top here now. We've got, I believe, 2 Mirage Galgas in the top 16 at this regional. So warms my heart. Love to see it as a fellow Mirage player. So shout out to Soren for getting 8th with this list. Very similar to the list that I was running. 2 Pseudo Aces. I think moving forward, I would even consider bumping it up to 3 with how many armors we're going to be running around. The Madoki Betamon, I think, is also a pretty good tech, not just against the mirror, but also against other decks that like to gain memories, such as Levia and whatnot. One could argue that these floodgates get popped very easily, so they may not have a lot of benefit, but I think just having it on there as like a threat is really nice. You run the one hybrid, which can always come up, right? Standard level 5 package. Otherwise, I like the Aero V tech. I ran it in mine. I'll continue running it in mine. That check +1 can give you a lot of gas and a lot of aggression right out the bat. And paired with burst mode, being able to restand and swing multiple times really adds to your OTK potential. 2 Full Moon is, I think, again, pretty good. In my deck, I probably will end up bumping it up to 2 just for that added removal option. But otherwise, pretty standard Mirage list. And like I said, real nice to see more Mirage players come out and do well. So shout out to you, man. And shout out to, I believe, another player who topped with Mirage. Next, we've got 11th place Isaac taking Devas all the way up there. So pretty impressive showing by him. I think this is, again, a pretty standard Devas list or Sovereigns list. This is one of the first lists that I've seen run Ukamon, which makes sense now that I think about it. The reason I feel like I haven't seen a lot of Uko in the Sovereigns matchups that I've played is mainly because they're running like the Mother as their eggs and using Mother as like an alliance target. Here, I think Ukamon is just sort of low to the ground aggression while you're able to kind of utilize your level 5s and set up your Sovereigns plays. So, I think otherwise pretty standard around the board. Your Zhu Chao and a Zulong aces are sort of your staple. The one spicy tech that I think that we see here is the Mega Gargo ace, which makes sense, right? It's not necessarily a Sovereigns or a Devan trait, so it's not searchable by any means, but at the same time, you do run a fair amount of green and black level 5s. Mega Gargo is probably one of the strongest ace cards that we have in the game right now. So it makes sense. I see why you would run at this at like a 2 of. So I see it. I see it for sure. And Merciful Mode, again, is a really good card right now, just as a hard counter to purple decks. So congrats, Isaac, for taking a deck that many people are, I think, sleeping on in terms of just how strong it can be. I think people recognize, don't get me wrong, I think people recognize that Sovereigns is not like a meme deck. But I do think that people are sleeping on just like how aggressive and how powerful it can really be in a good pilot. And we clearly see that Isaac's a good pilot with the deck, and he took it to 11th. And we've seen it sneak into other regionals as well. So, I think Sovereigns is low-key a very good deck. And outside of Fanglong, might I say very, very affordable too, So for new players who are looking to get into a fun, almost like Yu-Gi-Oh style deck, like look no further than Sovereigns. Next deck, we're going to see Anthony running a Lugamon deck, taking it to 12th. You know, Anthony, again, is a player that we consistently see in the top 16 from the regionals, at least that I've played and participated in. So clearly a very strong player, and Lugamon being a very strong deck, I think just taking it over there. So I think, again, here, pretty standard. You do run some of the new BT-15 pieces with the new Lugamon, the new Tyrannomon, and the new Lugarmon. Interesting tech with the Growlmon. I think the inheritable effect is interesting, right? I think that's probably why he's using it here. By deleting one of your other Digimon, this Digimon gains +1 security check. So, yeah, I mean, I see it, right? Being able to, whether you Chimera and slot this in or just Fenry on top of a stack, and with how you're spitting bodies out, being able to swing, delete, get an extra security check, and do it all over again multiple times, you're OTKing very, very quickly, which is real nice. I think the X Antibody Protoform also helps Fenry Luga out a whole lot, because a lot of the line is X Antibody, and being able to Digivolve for a reduced cost in a deck that already turbos into its top end very, very efficiently is really scary. And I think, again, standard like Wisdom Training, AG, and Analog Youth. So pretty standard Fenry Luga list, and congrats on the top. And the last deck we're going to go over is the 16th place Armors deck piloted by Carlos. I think a lot of players are shifting to Armors for multiple reasons, right? Armors is going to be a huge player in the next meta, so people are probably trying to get more practice with it. And it's arguably really strong. You know, you've got the new Security Magnamon from the Terrier starter deck that I think adds a good component of aggression and tempo, being able to Digivolve into it from Security. But the Digivolve and bounce potential is also huge. The Zudamon Ace also is a very nice tech that I've considered running in my Armors build as well, along with Ukomon. I mean, again, just a deck that likes to go quick and relies on like fast mid-range pokes. Like in any deck like that, Ukomon just makes sense. So I see why 4 of Ukomon is there. 3 Death X is nasty, but works, obviously. And then, you know, the Davis Tamer is also there. What's interesting to me is that there's no Davis and Ken, so I'd be very curious to see why we're not running Davis and Ken, because at least from the matches that I've seen in my experience, or little experience playing Armors, you know, Davis and Ken does provide a whole lot of memory and a lot of tempo with the ability to restand. So if you're seeing this, Carlos, I would be very curious to see what your thought process was. Clearly it worked for you, right? You know, getting up to 16th is a huge accomplishment, so shout out to you for that. But I am interested to see what your rationale was behind the no Davis and Ken, because that is a very interesting choice for me. But the rest of the list is very, very standard. You know, you've got your Heavens, you've got your Death X, you've got your Magna X's, you've got the full line of Magnas. So yeah, you know, congrats on the top. And that pretty much wraps it up for our top 16 list. Here's the pie chart once again for those of you who are curious. But yeah, shout out to all the players who got top 16 and locked in your Nets invite. Very curious to see how this weekend's regionals go. It'll be an online one. I believe a couple of our local folks are participating in it, so I'd be curious to see how they're going to do and how they place. And I'm also curious to see how the top 16 shakes out. You know, I think with every regional we've seen so far, there's been a lot of variety and a lot of different decks taking those top spots. So I wonder who's going to come out on top this time around. For those of you who are watching, if you've got predictions, drop them in the comments down below. Let me know what decks you think are going to take the top spots and what decks you think are being slept on right now. Alrighty guys, so last segment here is just a quick plug-in for those of you who are movie aficionados or really enjoy the Digimon movies. I remember seeing the Digimon, you know, Adventure, the beginning movie, you know, the most recent one that came out in theaters with everybody, and it was a good time. And I love just like collecting the box set of each movie just because Digimon was such a huge part of my childhood. You know, we do have an announcement from the official sort of movie company that they are releasing like the Blu-ray box set now. I'll drop a link to it in the video description down below as well. Pre-orders are going live, and I believe they should be live by the time this video uploads. For those who are pre-ordering, they will come with a sort of movie poster as well as a Digimon Liberator promotional pack. I believe these are the same ones that got passed out to those who went to the Card Game Fest or Nationals this past year. So those cards are going up, so those are pretty good value, and I think with the new Liberator support that we're going to be getting, those cards do hold some long-term value for those of you who are looking into the stonks portion of all this stuff. Might be a good investment. So check out the link that I'll have down below. We're no ways affiliated, sponsored, or anything like that, but I just figured, you know, for those of you who are curious and just like to collect and want that memory, it's there for you. Have fun, you know, go at it, go crazy. But yeah, you know, this wraps up today's episode of the Digital Gate. Thank you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate all the support. It really does mean a lot. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, hopefully this video, along with all the other commentary videos that we've done so far, have helped convince you to join us and, you know, continue to grow and, you know, enjoy the game of Digimon and the world of Digimon together with us. You know, that's really what this channel's been all about from the very beginning, and it's really cool to see it evolve in this way where we can kind of reach out and, you know, get to know a whole ton of people all across the country, across the globe, just because of the card game itself. So really, really fun times. I'm going to stop being sentimental. Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate your support, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.